kuti nyika isiwe vanhu vangu inguva yedu hatingatadzi kubudirira Mwari ari parutivi pedu rambai muchirwa My hitters don't die, the real hitters gon' shine and my people gon' line Cause we're born to win it I ain't saying
how the hell do I not have a deal? I swear this thing is a real dog. I play it fan off, the cowards so they can't feel. The wife try to console me like it's coming, baby, chill. She don't understand. I'm the only one that's real. I remember the third grade. Them kids, they had waves. I had them BDBs. You know that Zimbabwean bread. So they do shades. And your boy hit the stage, press play, and all the chicks was like, yeah. While boys was moving bricks, I was moving chips. Yeah. If she gave me calculus, gave her a mouthful of it. Heat rose to this thing, boy, I bet on myself.
Grand Rising, everyone. Welcome to The Date with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holliday. I want to welcome you to a true Throwback Thursday. I'm excited because I got Brian Callanan in the building, and it has definitely been a minute since I've been able to touch base with him. So we're going to be throwing back to some of the issues he's been covering on Seattle News, Views, and Brews, of course, with his co-host, David Croman. And I'm also really excited to share and showcase to y'all an amazing work that is been in progress over a year ago with Chardonnay, Beaver, and Donnitta, Martin Sinclair. So I'm excited that they are both here in the building with me today to talk about their series. And so y'all will be hearing more about that later on in the show. But of course, it is the top of the show, y'all. So it is a great time to tag and share the stream right here. Yes, you, that's right, you get to participate with us. Go ahead and tag and share this stream with folks who you feel could benefit from a daily dose of dopeness right here on The Day with Trae. If you cannot watch our TV show, we surely have you covered because you can listen to us anywhere you find your favorite podcast. Just search Converge Media Network and The Day with Trae. Y'all will find me on Google, Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Apple Music, whichever one is your favorite. Go ahead and search for us and y'all will find us there. Well, because I have such an amazing array of guests today, I want to get right to it because you know me and Brian, we can go on for a minute. What's up, Brian?
Hey, it's good to see you, Trae, and it's been too long, and I didn't realize till I sat down here I've been missing that daily dose of dopeness. It's really good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you as well. And you've been covering some busy topics. I mean, there's a lot going on in the city. Mm-hmm. Tell us about some. I guess we'll maybe cover some of the top three. Yeah. Where do we want to start?
I'd like to try to start with what's going on with the drug law that the city of Seattle is working on right now. So a lot of headlines over this over the past couple of months. As you know, the state put something into effect right after its legislative session this year saying, okay, we've got a gross misdemeanor for drug use or possession of drugs. And so I think the bottom line that I'm seeing out of this is every city is going to enforce this in a different way. Seattle wanted to take this a different way with a whole treatment first concept in terms of dealing with people found on the street there. And so that's what they've been wrestling with. And I had a really interesting show on Seattle Channel. I'm a host there too, as you know. Yeah. And I had an interesting show with Councilmember Lisa Herbold and Councilmember Andrew Lewis, who are basically the architects of this new drug law that was given to them by Mayor Harrell, and they've been working on the details. But what they have basically said was, hey, the state needed to go in a special session on this, and we do too. At least that's the rationale they've been using. And so what we're talking about for the city of Seattle is most likely something that is going to be put into effect on September 19th. Now, there's been some concern about that because the state law basically went into effect in the middle of August. And now here we are with this interesting kind of month plus lag period that I know a lot of people are concerned about. In talking with the council members about that, this is a process that we're going through here. I'm not condoning what they've done here. I just want to try to explain it. But there's a process that they're going through here through which they're going to be working on a lot of these different cases. Is it still illegal to use and possess drugs in Seattle? Yes, it is. In terms of how that is actually enforced and how that is actually going to turn into cases going forward, that's a bit of a question mark still. But I will say what the city is trying to do is lead with treatment. And the mayor has been talking about this a lot, wants to invest $27 million into some more treatment options to help people that are out there. And he has basically said, there's something in place called sort of the level of harm, public harm that might be involved. And this is going to be an interesting nuance too. I wanted to bring this up. So basically, if police run into somebody who is on the street and let's say blocking a business or harassing somebody and they're using drugs or under the influence of drugs, an arrest most likely will be made in a case like that. But let's say there's a person that's sleeping out on a bench around nobody on Pier 62 for just as an example there. And they're still under the influence of drugs. The police are still going to engage with them, but I think it's going to be a little bit easier to start with the discussion about treatment in a situation like that, rather than using anything along the criminal justice system. So again, still a lot of loose ends here. I think we'll have some more answers by the time September 19th comes around, and certainly next week, right after Labor Day, the city's going to be talking about it. But I just wanted to lay it all out there. There's a lot of moving parts to this.
Well, there definitely is. And especially when you talk about this kind of period here where it's kind of hard to gauge, and it's almost as if, people that are out there, I mean, I have these conversations almost weekly about we're living in what people think is almost post-apocalyptic. It's like, we see, this is what I hear, y'all. Okay. So don't go to the rolls on me or roast me over the coals. But people are like, we're living in the zombie land, right?
People see walking around. I've been there.
We see the effects of addiction and drug use everywhere, Brian. And yes, maybe there are some cities that don't have it as much. I always think about Medina or something, Mercer Island. Maybe they don't see it as much. But when we talk about it hitting, King County, I'm seeing it in King County, Pierce County, even Snohomish County. I was just recently out there. We're seeing this, the effects of it. But the question about criminal charges has always been something that never settled with me regarding, you're dealing with somebody who has an addiction issue and putting them in jail doesn't help them with their addiction issue. Right. And so I think there's a lot to be said about this. And I'm glad that the city of Seattle is really taking a strong look on this and trying to change the way that we address, people who are dealing with addiction issues. I'm glad that this is happening.
Yeah, I am too. And I think you bring up an important point about what's going on in different cities, because some people are saying, well, that's Seattle's problem or something along those lines. Not true. I mean, major metropolitan areas all around the country are certainly dealing with this. The fentanyl epidemic is crazy to look at. And you're right. I have done a number of tours with the people who do We Deliver Care along 3rd Avenue there. And I've seen some of the people that you're talking about literally walking around like zombies. And it's very difficult to see. They're trying to lead with compassion, make sure they're making a personal connection with these folks, these WDC crews. And they're great. I mean, there's a lot of good work going on out there. But the challenge, I think, with this, and treatment is an important part of it, is just that work can be so slow and so incremental. I mean, the amount of work that needs to go into one person to make sure that they're going to be okay, it's a ton. And when you talk about treatment, it's not a check done kind of a thing. It's like, yep, treatment and you're good. It's like, no, that's got to be a lifelong type of a thing. So when people talk about treatment, and I think it is important to talk about treatment, we've been having a big conversation statewide about this, and it needs to be part of it. That treatment can't be just, okay, let's just shove this person over there. I think there just needs to be a larger discussion about, okay, if we're going to be real about treatment, then where are those dollars? Where are those resources? A lot of them are in criminal justice right now, and it's figuring out how to divvy up the pie in a different way, which I think is the bigger discussion that's going to be happening in years to come. Well,
I also think it's so important too, because we talk about societal norms. And my 9-year-old now can spot someone on the street that is under the influence of drugs. And you're right. I think a lot of what we're seeing is fentanyl use. It is on the rise still. The ideas of the synthetic fentanyl hitting the streets and the overdoses, going, what they said, 250%, 300% up
King
in
County's
the last
had a
5
really
years.
bad run with it.
It's just, it's something to be said for. I was explaining to my son, when I was growing up, we didn't really see this. Crack epidemic was huge, especially in Black communities across the country. And we all now are learning more about the history of that and how it was intentional. But the idea of it being this blatant and in our face is something that I'm just saying, now my 9-year-old can point it out. So I think that we also have to really understand the kind of cultural norms that are being created, and how do we really educate young people on this so that it's more, they're more aware of it. So they're not, curious about it or things like that, right? Like we can actually point directly to some of the actions and habits that cause what we're seeing on the streets. I think that's important.
Let me take that a little different way. I want kids to be curious about it in terms of learning about it. Doing it, absolutely not.
Right.
But I just want that conversation to happen, because what's different about this epidemic in comparison to crack, et cetera, and some of the different issues that were going on in the early 80s and 90s there, this is something where literally 2 grains of this stuff with fentanyl we're talking about that can fit on the point of a pencil can kill you. And so what we're seeing on the streets, I'm actually working on a documentary about this for Seattle Channel right now. And it's amazing to hear this different stuff from the DEA, but what they're finding in these different pills that they're grabbing off the streets that look just like prescription pills, right? And so people think they're getting this pill, but they're getting fentanyl just about every time. They're getting a dose of fentanyl in there. And what they found is that dose is starting to ramp up and up and up, so they can hook more people, right? And hook them on a higher dose, but they're also going to kill more people. But the people who are dealing this don't remind about that, because they're just going to keep on cranking out new customers. So it's really dangerous. It's something that can be purchased for less than $1 a pill on the street, which is another difference in terms of what we're talking about with different drug epidemics. But I think it's important to look at it in that larger context, in that historical context. Why is this more important? Because it's killing more people. It's doing it a lot more quickly, and we need to be paying attention to it right now. In this one person I talked to who unfortunately lost her daughter, I just feel like we're going to lose a generation of young people to this. And it's really, really dangerous stuff.
Well, I'm so glad you are covering this on Seattle News Views and Brews and on the Seattle Channel and doing this documentary. I think all of it is so important.
It is.
We need to be learning right now, and we need content created around this issue so that it's not something that gets swept under the rug at all. What else are y'all covering?
So many things. And thank you for going down that path with me on the different drug issues there. I think another important part of what I'm covering right now and what we'll see over the course of the fall is we're going to have discussions about the budget, which is always something that happens in this fall. But I think we're also going to be seeing discussions about, okay, what about the budget of the future? Because what the city of Seattle has found is that coming up in 2025, they're projecting somewhere around a $200 million budget cap. So for a budget that's around $7 million, that's not the end of the world, but it's substantial. It's something that's really big. And so where's that coming from? There's a lot of discussion about that. Partially it's from the unsettled nature of the Jumpstart the high income earners payroll tax. That can be a little volatile there. And there are some other pieces that have not anyway, it's a little bit complicated, and I don't mean to brush it off, but there's a lot of different pieces that are contributing to this budget gap. So how do you solve something like that? And this is a long-term issue that all the council is working on. They are looking to try to cut some costs in some ways, but they're really looking at, and I think they're putting a lot of eggs into the basket of trying to figure out new ways to get progressive revenue on the table. So what does that look like? Does it turn into some sort of tax on capital gains like the state has? Are we going to enact something like that at the city level? Because there are certainly a lot of people gaining dollars from that in our city. And can that be culled in some way to make it happen on a city level as well and get some money in the city's coffers? They're looking strongly at that. They're looking at ways of maybe boosting up Jumpstart and saying, okay, all these multi-million dollars, okay, let's bring that level down a little bit and see if we can't cull a few more dollars there too, because I think this is something that a lot of different cities are going to be going through over the next couple of years is, okay, we've got these services, and those services, talk about drug treatment, et cetera. If we want to increase those services, where are the dollars going to come from? And it's an important discussion to have all the time. I'm focused on what's happening with this year's budget because it's one thing, it's going to be pretty tight, but then looking forward into the future, I really think that that's something that the council needs to talk about now. And then also the council candidates that are vying for the election coming up here in the fall, they need to be talking about it as well, because that's not like we're going to push that over here. That needs to be front and center. Talk about revenue. How are we going to generate it? How are we going to deal with the cost that this city has? Yeah,
this is really important. I think it's one of those things that every time we have discussions about budget, I always think about the outcomes of budget, because I feel that sometimes we put a lot of money into these buckets, and it's unfortunate that we don't really experience the level of outcome that you're expecting when you talk about $200 million gap. Okay, if we can fill it, what does that look like in terms of, innovative services and approaches to some of the major issues that the city is facing? How are we actually experiencing that level of investment, especially when it comes to taxpayer dollars, right? And I think it's something to be said about, I look at some of the other cities, they just tax at a high rate. great because they're just like, this is going to solve our issues.
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot of homelessness
Yeah.
or addiction or other things. And
Sure.
we can learn from some of those cities globally
Okay.
about how that works. But, you know, we hold on to our money here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. Like
Yeah.
somebody's like, I worked hard for that.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
know, that's my money, right?
We're a no income tax state.
Exactly.
And I think that is through the culture here. Keep going.
Yeah. But I just feel like for me, I'm always like, okay, great. If you get the money you need in the budget, can you make sure that all of it isn't going to administrative costs? Because that doesn't help with the actual issue. So I think we really need more impactful teams. And I say that because we pay some of these administrators for these programs get paid six figures in a really great great pay.
Yeah.
Yes, their work is challenging and all of that. But at the same time, I'm always concerned because as a citizen, we're not actually experiencing the output of all of that money. So I think that's really important too.
Yeah.
Brian, as always, there's so much to cover in so little time. Thank you so much for being with me. Look right there. Let the folks know how to connect with you in Seattle News, Views, and Brews.
I will do that. Seattle News, Views, and Brews is coming back this coming Wednesday here. Make sure you check it out right after Labor Day. That's the greatest way to check us out right here on Converge. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, that's another good way to do that, at Callanan Seattle. I really like engaging with people, and I love engaging with you, Trae. Thank you for taking the time.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Good
Thank
to
you
see
for
you.
being here. Oh, wow, y'all. Of course, when Brian starts the show, we're going to get into some deep discussion, but I'm really excited because we get to share a real gem that has been in the making for quite some time. Because up after this short break, I got Chardonnay Beaver in the building, and of course, Miss Donnitta Sinclair. Y'all, stay tuned right after this. You do not want to miss it. You're watching The Day with Trae.
I think my pieces of advice would be come in with humility, enjoy your passion, and be ready to work. Those are my three things. I think if you think your product is perfect and you may not need to adjust, your product's gonna die quickly because the world adjusts, people adjust. You need to always be thinking about your customer and what they want. So you may have an idea of what you like, but you got to move that to what the customer likes also. And two, just enjoy your job. I love what I do. It is hard. I love what I do. It's hard, and you're fighting Mother Nature, and you're fighting inflation and all these other things. But I think it's made me a better human being. And thirdly, like, be ready to work. Don't be lazy. Like, just do the research. Get a mentor. Like, you know, that also goes with being humble. Like, find somebody who's done it, and then work with them to help you be the best version of yourself.
Big Tobacco thinks they know everything. They think they know you, your community, the places you go, the way that you spend your time. They think they got you all figured out, down to a formula, a calculation based off of numbers of what they think they know. Show them they're wrong. Learn more at theythinktheyknowyou.org.
I learned about the ONU program through many different community organizations. The program, they're very good at making sure that you meet the right people. My favorite part would have to be the community building and also the volunteer opportunities as well. I've been working on my physical health a lot more. I've been intentional about that, and they're very big on that. I'm still learning how transformational it is because there's just so much opportunity. It's a great program, and they will support you.
Visit the link at the end of this video to learn more.
Legs. Welcome back, everyone, to The Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holliday. I'm really excited because this has been an amazing work that has been in the books for quite some time. And it is really about the Beloved campaign. Both of these amazing women have been able to be a part of that and have produced a mini series that y'all will be seeing soon on Converge Media. So without further ado, I'm excited to have Miss Chardonnay and Miss Donnitta in the building. Hey, y'all.
Hello. I think we'll both say good morning.
Yes, yes. Well, I want to start with you, Chardonnay, because this is the first time that you've been executive producer over a project. I just want to hear about the importance of this story and why you chose to really put your energy into this particular project.
Yeah, I mean, gun violence has been something that has been plaguing our community for a while now. And even considering the past few years since 2020, Donnitta was so kind and transparent to share her story and vulnerability. And as a part of the Beloved campaign, I started writing pieces. Journalism is my primary medium. And then I transitioned into thinking of what capacity do we have to do a visual? Because how can we archive the stories of those that are really trying to revel in becoming love, being love, which was the name Beloved. And honestly, through God, through prayer, through consulting heaven about what are we going to do about this? How do we think about purpose? And so I started to cultivate, okay, well, I know that this is painful, but where's the purpose? And I thought of Donnitta, and she said, yeah, let's do it. And then we pulled up to Converge, and it happened so organically, but using love and purpose to be the heart post behind what we're doing.
Yeah. Donnitta, this is something that, you and I have had several conversations and discussions about, but the idea that you were sharing your story in this way, tell us why that was important for you.
Thank you for having me. When I look at pain, I just was wondering, there has to be another answer to it, right? And not just dwell in sorrow and tears. I said it has to be a purpose. And so when I went through my pain in 2020 after, sorry guys, I had to take a look at me and what part I played in it. And so I said, before I can ask anybody to heal and change and talk about accountability, what part of accountability and change was I going to take? And so I said, I got to start self-care. It started with self-care and started with, getting to know all my peoples and, my community and partnering and building that relationship, but building it on trust. Building it on strength and creating a space, right? It ain't just healing spaces, it's spaces that we're creating. And so when I got offered to be a part of the Beloved, I didn't want it to just be about my son. I want it to be about all our children that we have lost in our community, and because they're loved and we want to be loved, we want to continue to love them. So that's honestly how I started this journey, turning my pain into purpose.
I love that, y'all. And Chardonnay, this was filmed over a year ago. Tell us, what is the significance now? Clearly we're still seeing the rise of gun violence. We're still having parents and families affected. What do you feel the significance of this time is now to release this amazing miniseries?
Yeah, so we filmed this back in May of 2022 right here at Converge. And when we did that, I was like, okay, how are we going to release it to the world? Let's get these things started. But then I had to step back. And the reason why it's being released a year later has nothing to do with Donnitta. It wasn't her. She was ready. It was really me. We had Devon Pickett Jr. and we had Elijah Lewis and we had so many others. And again, I had to consider, what are we doing with this? How can I actually make this something that is meaningful, but also timely? And I wish it wasn't relevant. I wish we didn't have to sit here and say this had relevance, but it does. And so I feel like in this time, what people can really take from this is the opportunity to say, one, universally, we all are going to experience grief. That's an experience that we are all bound to have, unfortunately. But in that grief, I think more than likely we have the opportunity to say, what are we going to do with this? We have the potential to take that pain and turn it into purpose. And honestly, not a lot of people are going to have the experience that Donnitta had. But what they can see is that you can take it, cultivate it, and use it to champion something that matters. Yeah. We were all put on this earth to make a difference. And so I used what was in my sphere of media. And I said, I'm going to use my role in this industry, in this campaign, to make a difference, which everyone has the power to do. So that's the significance. It's like, if it's not gun violence, maybe it's another issue that really stings your heart, that laments you, but use your role and your influence for good.
Yeah. It's so important. And, throughout the series, Donnitta, you talk about your life before you lost your son, right? Lorenzo Anderson Jr. We will always continue to say his name.
Thank you.
But you talk about that, and I want you to share maybe one of the top things that you have to share with other family members who are dealing with that same sense of grief that you found yourself dealing with, because there's always something that can be resilient for someone else because of maybe what you've been able to experience and how you got yourself through it.
Well, I'm still getting myself through it.
Absolutely.
Take one day at a time. And when you're not okay, don't be okay, right? Take that time off, but find something find something about you. Find something value to you that you love about you that makes you happy. I noticed that when we go through gun violence, we get robbed. We get robbed not just from our babies, but from who we are. We have to get a whole new identity, whole new person. And honestly, before you can move forward, the person you were has to get healed. The person you were you have to deal with those old scars, the trauma. Just being honestly, it's about being honest with yourself. If you want change, it starts with honesty.
Yeah.
So the best advice I can say is, to every mother, I hope that we're not going to continue to go through this, but pay attention, right? Know what your kids is doing. Friends don't take friends to danger, and your loved ones, they're not going to take you somewhere where harm will be done. It don't matter. It's just a petty fight. They're not fights no more. They're your life. It can be taken. And so tap into your friends' parents. We used to say that, like, we didn't want our friends, why you so cool? No, it's important because you need to make sure that they're not hurting. In order to make sure that everybody makes it home safe, is I got to make sure you're safe. I got to love me and I got to love you. So when we get the text, did you make it? I care about you. I love you. So that's when we know. Not, I just see a lot in our community. So I just ask that mothers, don't be silent to what's going on. Don't participate, because I know that times can get hard, right? Finances, and we accept stuff. And when we accept it, it continues. The cycle doesn't stop. It continues. And so not that we're putting our kids in worse danger.
Yeah.
Let's save our children. It's time to save them, but we may owe them, not saying we owe these children an apology. I'm apologizing for being a teen parent and not giving myself an opportunity to heal and deal with whatever my childhood trauma before I brought you into this world, bringing you trauma.
Well, you talk about that, and this is not even something I was going to mention, but when you say that, you actually did a public apology to the young man who took your son's life. And this, video, I think went viral or something. I mean, because people understood that not only were you talking about your pain, but you were holding everyone who was in that young man's life accountable to who he had become, to where he felt like that was the only option that he could take, was to pick up a gun and shoot your son like that. I really want to ask you, because that was so raw and it was so passionate. And I'm getting a little emotional, because as someone who has just been in this community, it's so true. We don't do that enough, Donnitta. And I just want to thank you for that, for putting that out there in the way that you did, by being as raw and brutal as you could in that moment. It really, I think, affected so many people, because they understood not only is it about us having some polished lifestyle, no, you're putting a lot of stuff on the back burner that you need to deal with now in order to really address the pathways that are being created for these young people to think gun violence is the key and the answer. So I just had to thank you for that, because that was really a special moment. As you were in that moment, I really want to hear from you, because you said it's on all of us. It's on community, but it starts with family.
It does.
I just want to hear more about that, because the families understand when that young person is going astray. It ain't like sometimes we don't know. we be knowing and we don't say anything. So I love how you're telling people to speak up. What was it for you that made you say, I need to be sure to address it in this way right now?
Well, honestly, I think the time, we had been there for 2 hours, almost 3 hours. And so when I came in there as a mother, but then the community leader, advocate, a mom, an angry mom, all that started just boiling when I seen that our system that already failed us was continuing. If you don't know, say it.
Yeah.
Don't pretend that you have the answers because you're in position. You need help, and allow help, right? And then we got to understand that one organization can't do it. We need us all. In order for this to work, I need her, him, you. It's the linkage to care. It's not service no more. We have to linkage to care. We have to start caring about our community. And your kid has to matter to me. Yeah. You don't have kids yet. No. So good. But you have to matter. Your brother has to matter. Everybody in your family has to be healthy and matter. That's the only way we can cure it. Because there is a cure to this disease, understanding violence as a disease, but dealing with it. And so when I got in that courtroom, just to be honest, I was just through with the white and black games. I was through with the system failing and we putting it on. Let me take some accountability, but let everybody in this room, because we showing up for court, but we ain't showing up to do nothing healthy. We didn't show up to put them in a job, even if it was a job court. Yeah. We didn't have no alternative for the young man but gun, right? And now, I don't know if you guys got to see it, but he apologized. Wow. He apologized. So it was bittersweet, but I didn't ask for it, but I'm thankful that he did.
Yeah. See, it matters in those moments when we can, honestly address something like that to just spark the idea. That's why I got so emotional, because I see that as the real work. Yes. And, Chardonnay, when we think about what media can do, we can be present. So I love that you picked this up and said, I'm going to do the work to produce this, to be the executive producer and make this happen. When you think about, this series, I want to make sure folks know when it's airing, how they can tap into it, but also what are some of the things you really want our community and the audience to gain by tuning in?
Yeah. Which camera do I look at?
Right there. The one closest to me.
Look at this one. I want people to know that when everything in your life is telling you to throw in the towel, destiny calls you higher. And that's the call that she took. She chose to take it higher. And not everyone has the capacity to bring others along because they're just trying to make it themselves. And yet she did that. She brought other people along. And so for me as a storyteller, it was important that I engaged that. It was important. I was in college when we filmed this. I was in midterms. I was like, how are we going to do this? That week I was actually sick because a family friend had died that Monday, and we recorded on that Friday due to gun violence. And so it felt very real time. But I want people to know that they can see this. They can have a window into Donnitta's life, into how to become love for yourself. Next week here on Converge, we have the show airing at 7:30 p.m. Monday, September 4th, Wednesday, September 6th, and then Friday, September 8th. That's part 1, part 2, part 3. And we just dive right into conversation. I have a brief monologue at the beginning where it kind of catches you up into where everything kind of took place. I feel like I'm having a one-on-one with y'all, so stay with me. Yeah. But that's what I hope people can gain from this, is to pick up the call of destiny. When that call happens for a parent, what took away from me, especially as a young person, and I see a hope deficit in my generation, is you would think that life would command everything to stop. Like, okay, I have permission to stop. But you don't. Especially our moms of color, those who are in low income communities, those who just don't have the capacity, don't have the resources. Life doesn't stop for you. And so to catch her in real time, also as you're doing and healing, was refreshing for me. I was empowered. So if it's about our neighbor, it's about us. It didn't take for my brother. It didn't take for my mom to have to get the call for me to care. That's what I want us to get. That's what she's getting at, about being about your neighbor's business. So thank you guys, Converge, for just having this space. I mean, a safe space for visions and art and truth to come forth. I'm eternally grateful.
I'm so grateful to be able to be a part of such an amazing platform that not only, amplifies and elevates what's happening in our community, but also curates the content in terms of us sharing our authentic story. So thank you both. The name of the series,
My Journey to Beloved.
There it is. And you said Monday, Wednesday, and Friday next week.
7:30 p.m.
Thank y'all so much for, pouring into this effort so we all can benefit from your journey, your continued journey. Love to you both for what y'all do.
Thank you. Love always.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, y'all. I told you it was going to be a true Throwback Thursday because although this was filmed over a year ago, the significance is still important to this day. Make sure you turn into My Journey to Beloved next week right here on Converge Media. Y'all, I'm going to wrap it all up right after this short break. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae.
1 in every 500 African Americans in the U.S. suffers from sickle cell disease. 1 in 3 African American blood donors is a match for patients with sickle cell. 1 appointment to donate blood with the American Red Cross can help save a life. Will you be that one? Visit redcrossblood.org/ourblood today to schedule an appointment at a location near you.
The new COVID-19 updated booster provides the best protection available right now. So don't wait. Stay safe this summer and get your updated booster today. To find a free vaccine provider near you, go to kingcounty.gov/vaccine.
So the advice that I would give to anybody coming into really any space is always keeping an eye out for the people that are doing the thing that you want to do and seeking them out and just asking them for a cup of coffee, asking to meet and connect with them in some way, because more often than not, those are the people that want to help you and want to uplift you and figure out a way to provide you support. So even if they don't have the answer, they can help you find somebody, but also they're helping you write the first few chapters of your story. And I think that that is the most important thing. Like, you don't know what you don't know coming into that space, and you have to be unafraid to ask those questions and really trust yourself and lean in hard. You're gonna make mistakes. That's going to happen. It is inevitable. It is a part of life. But what matters is what you learn from that, what the takeaway is, and how you push forward.
Welcome back, everyone, to The Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holliday. What a fantastic episode today. Huge shout out to all of my guests. Of course, starting off with Brian Callanan is always a treat. And it's so great to hear some of the topics that he and David Croman are capturing and analyzing for all of us, because honestly, there's so much to uncover. So make sure y'all are tuning in to Seattle News, Views, and Brews right here on Converge Media. And also, what a gem we have in our community with Donnitta and Chardonnay, both of them partnering together to make sure that this story was shared with you all as we learn from each other's pain and as we turn our pain into purpose. As they said, make sure you tune in to My Journey into Beloved. This is a special thing for me because, I'm always saying here on The Day with Trae, we want to showcase to you people that will inspire you, and it can come in a wide variety of ways, whether it is through, what Donnitta experienced losing a son to gun violence, whether it is through Chardonnay being a young person in media, a young journalist, and saying, I've got to do something about this. The call is higher for me. I'm getting called to a higher purpose with my skill set, right? Whether it is Brian giving his energy time and time again to the Seattle channel and Converge Media, with Seattle News, Views, and Brews, and covering these topics within the city of Seattle. The idea that you can be inspired by the guests that come on here is not just for you, it's also for me, y'all. I'm telling you. It's also for me. So be encouraged, be inspired. You may find that there is something that you experience or someone close to you experiences that means that you are now called to a higher purpose. And we welcome you to step into that purpose so that you and your energy can benefit so many more by bringing it out into community. So, of course, there's multitudes of ways to see yourself as a part of the solution. Be inspired to do so, y'all. And for me, until tomorrow at 11 a.m., peace.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.